everybody. I pray that you are having a blessed Tuesday. Happy Transformation Tuesday, y'all. I'm Dr. Wanita Mercer. I almost forgot my last name. I'm Dr. Wanita Mercer. I am the founder, CEO, and Chief Heart Leader at Lead My Heart, executive coaching and consulting. And I'm just so glad that you're joining me this morning. You could be anywhere watching anything, but you chose to stop on your timeline and check me out. And so I thank you for being here. And I know that this is going to be a blessing to you. So, what are you watching? You are watching the first episode of the web series for this month called Fostering Unity in DEIB. And by the end of this episode, you're going to hear that title in a completely different way. I promise, okay? But I'm thankful that you're here. And we're going to get into the content in just a moment. But you know what I want you to do first, okay? I want you to tag and share, okay? Tag and share this video, this live stream, and then tag some people, okay? Like tag your friends, tag your colleagues, tag your family members, tag that supervisor, okay? Tag the person who does DEIB in your organization. Tag the person you want to be a champion for DEIB in your organization. Because let me tell you, when you think about that person who does DEIB, you're going to have a totally different perspective about them too by the end of this live stream. Okay, so tag and share. Tag and share, y'all. Okay, here we go. So today's episode is about let me get rid of this lower third. There we go. Today's episode is about the heart of DEIB. As you know, with Lead My Heart, we are the Leader's Heart Clinic. We talk about matters of the heart because the Lord says for us to guard our hearts because everything we do flows from it. And that includes our leadership and who we are becoming as leaders, how we lead, how we see people, how we make decisions. It all stems from our heart. And so we're talking about the heart of DEIB today. Okay, where we're going to be discussing the definitions of DEIB, a short history, the purpose of DEIB in the 21st century organization. And then definitely, you know me, offering new perspectives on this. I guarantee you I'm going to say some things you don't like, and that's okay. Because only when you're confronted with some information or statements that make you go, I don't know about that, are we provoked to consider different perspectives and even change, okay? And so when I say something you love, throw up those hearts. Yes, yes, yes. But when I say something you don't like, also, hey, throw up those sad faces, the angry face. I don't care. I want you to interact with me. Let me know that you're here. So for those of you who are here and watching live, hey, put in the chat, say hello, okay? And definitely ask any questions or add input here. I'm not the know-all, okay, on any topic. I do specialize in certain areas, but I invite all of you to be a part of the learning community here at Lead My Heart, okay? All right, so let's get into it, y'all. The objectives are to be able to define DEIB in your own words, okay? After we've gone through with what each one is, okay? And then also to understand the heart of DEIB. Many of you don't know necessarily, but Lead My Heart is an acronym, okay? And so you're going to learn more about the heart of Lead My Heart and what that stands for when it comes to leadership. And then we're going to talk about, I hope you understand the role of purpose in fostering unity in DEIB. Purpose, purpose, purpose. Lead My Heart, we're all about purpose. That's where we start, okay? We start there. All right, so what is DEIB? Some of you know, right? Because if you've been a part of any organization, I would say for at least the past year, you're probably being inundated with DEIB training, which is great. But there's so much more to it than the checked box, okay, and your development or your continued learning in an organization. There's so much more to it. So let's talk about what DEIB is, okay? First, D stands for diversity. And diversity simply means a range of differences, a range of similarities, a range of, different characteristics that are demonstrated. Okay, skills and abilities, anything that you think could be diverse or you have multiple options for it, that can be included in diversity. Excuse me. It's raining outside and my allergies are flaring up. So please forgive me for my raspy voice. I'll try to definitely over pronunciate my words today. So that's diversity. And then we have equity. That is the E in DEIB. And equity refers to fairness, justice, not equality, okay? Everything that's equal isn't equitable, okay? You can give every single person $10,000, but if millionaire $10,000, okay, and say, hey, go do something great with it, but you give, someone who's living on the street $10,000 and say, go do something great with it, or let's say go start a business. Let's let that something great be, to sow a seed in a business or something. The first thing that person on the street's going to do, they're going to go look for housing. They're going to say, wow, that's great, but I need to eat today. I need housing. I need clothes. I need to take care of myself. That's the priority. And sometimes in organizations, we have that approach. Just like you were like, here's great policies and procedures. Go be great. Go do everything we've asked you to do. And people are like, well, I still don't even have the basics to be able to, work well or work as well as Johnny over here. And so we have to think about equity and equality very differently. Then we have inclusion. Inclusion refers to creating a culture, an environment, an atmosphere, a situation, an experience, okay, where all individuals feel valued, respected, and supported. Valued, respected, and supported. And then we have belonging. That's the B in DEIB. The concept of belonging refers to feelings of being accepted, included, and valued. Emphasis on accepted. So inclusion can look like belonging. I can invite you to the party, but if when you get there, I don't really talk to you, I don't really interact with you, you see me like talking to everyone else at the party and say, oh my gosh, it's so great, so happy that you came here. But then you get to, I get to you and it's like, hi, thanks for coming. And I move on. You're like, I don't think I belong here. I see people having great conversations and I'm just kind of over here in the corner, really not interacting or finding a connection with anybody here. It's possible I'm included, I'm at the party, but I don't feel like I belong. And guess what? The host of the party can tell me I belong, but I, as your guest, I'm the only one who can tell you that I actually do. Did you hear that? Let me restate that. And I want you to see my face when I say it. Okay? The difference between inclusion and belonging is that you were invited to the party. You have every opportunity to have conversations, to have the same food, to enjoy the music and everything that's there. But if you still feel left out because you really haven't had any meaningful interaction or conversations with the host or other guests, or you feel like every conversation, there's nothing you can really speak to, or if you feel like, gosh, the behaviors here, even though I'm welcome, I'm invited, to do these different things, that's just really not my scene. I don't belong here. I don't belong here. And the host can tell me I belong here, but only I can confirm it. Only I really know if I truly belong. So, different perspectives here. Okay? That's what Lead My Heart is all about, because the world will tell you everybody belongs. The world will tell you you belong everywhere. You belong at every table, and you don't. Yikes. I kind of jumped ahead. I was going to kind of build up to that a little bit better to not shock you with that, but that's the truth. Okay? Let's keep going. All right. Companies in the top quartile of ethnic and racial diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. They're outperforming the average, okay? Those companies that seem to, in a way, however they're doing it, prioritizing ethnic and racial diversity. And that's just one type of diversity. As I've said in many of my posts, when you think of DEIB initiatives or efforts, which should be that's another conversation, that you only think of like the LGBTQ2S plus community, and there's an A in there. Okay, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. If you only think about that, or if you only think about diversity hiring, you really need this, because diversity is so much bigger than just those two things. Okay. And so, yeah, here we go. More diverse executive teams financially outperform their peers by a significant margin. Okay. So executives are leveling up, but how are they leveling up? Because they're above average, and they have above average diversity in their executive teams. Yes. And so my question to you, for executives watching, think about your colleagues, your peers on the executive team. What does it look like? Is it homogeneous? Do you have some diversity, or does everyone kind of look alike, think alike, have the same kind of background? What does that look like? Okay. They had a return on equity that was 53% higher than companies with below average diversity. Again, I want to be careful and kind of pointing out that as I read these statistics, the language is a lot like what we see every day, where diversity is really highlighting, racial diversity as the main thing. Okay, but there's so many more, but we're going to get to that in just a second. And then a report by Center for Talent Innovation, there's not another of in there, found that companies with diverse leadership teams are 45% more likely to report that their market share grew over the previous year, and 70% more likely to report that the firm captured a new market. I wonder why. Is it because they see representation in the company, and the company knows better how to serve a new market well because they have representatives in their company telling them how to serve people well? Could that be it? I would dare say so, okay? I would dare say so. So let's talk a little bit more about the historical context, okay, of DEIB. here in America. I want to be careful to say that. Okay, here in America. So often, we as Americans have a very narrow perspective as to when things happened and when they began. And so a lot of things I see online as I was researching DEIB and all of that, it was like it started with civil rights movement, but I never really saw the specification of letting people know that's only here in America. Okay. So I do want to be clear with that because leave my heart, we have a global perspective. We understand the role that we play in the bigger world, in the bigger scheme of things. And so I certainly have that perspective and I want you to know that. So I want to be very clear in saying that this is the historical context of DEIB here in America. Okay. And so in the late 1940s, okay, you'll see some people say, oh, it began, in 1956 with the Brown versus School Board of Education that integrated schools, but it started way before then. That was just the first big event. But the fight began, the resistance began, the I'm tired of this, no more began many years, a decade before, okay, of people saying enough is enough already. Enough is enough, something has to change. And because let's be honest, people just didn't wake up one day and say, we're suing the Supreme Court. Or, I'm sorry, not suing the Supreme Court, but taking this to the Supreme Court, right? Because there has to be change. There has to be laws that support the initiatives and gives rights equally to people of color and more rights to women as well, okay? So that just didn't happen one morning. There has to be momentum for change. And of course, there was greater momentum, okay, with Brown versus Board of Education. But we have to understand that anything we want to see change, it has to start somewhere, and it starts long before the first, bang, if you will. Then we see years after that, okay, decades passing by, and we're seeing the need for DEIB at a greater level. Why? Because business is driving it. Business is driving it. We are a very materialistic, capitalistic society. And so you have to understand that what continued to build momentum for DEIB was realizing, hey, it's just good business. It's just good business. It's like what I was telling my sister about tithing and giving. It's just good business to not eat your seed. It's just good business to do what God says to do. It's just good business to know God's heart for something and to do it. It's just good business, y'all. And so DEIB, at the end of the day, no matter how you feel about it, no matter what you struggle with regarding your perspective of DEIB and what it looks like and why it's happening and all of that, it's just good business. Okay. And so that's what continued to drive the imperative for DEIB because of the diverse workforce, because people wanting to understand new markets and get their products and services to more people, but realizing, gosh, I guess I gotta kind of get to know them and what they want and need and learn about them in order to do that. And then, of course, in these past few years, and I would dare say since the pandemic and leading up to the pandemic, with, of course, a lot of the, the complications, the inadequacies, the downright racial injustices regarding interactions between people of color and police officers in many areas across our nation, not in all of them. It's not every, and it's certainly not every police officer, but because of the escalations that we've seen, especially during the pandemic, now there's a renewed interest because what we saw first started with the pandemic was that people weren't treated the same. People didn't have the same access to healthcare. People, died who didn't necessarily have to die simply because of the color of their skin or where they lived, or or inequalities or inequities. Let me better use that, because of inequities related to their work and not having access to healthcare, and not having, equal pay. That is a trickle effect into other issues, right? Then we saw how it was a big deal with the education system, how children, minority children, more disfranchised children, suffer greater gaps in education and didn't have access to online education during that time. And so we're seeing still the effects of that, how far behind they are. Then, of course, all the, riots, and then all of that going on with politics and the interactions with police, which is so much. And let's be honest, it's still so much on a day-to-day basis in different areas. And I want to say here, when you're seeing the news attacks on different communities and different cultures, and I say cultures from this standpoint, I want to be clear and define what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about African American culture or, Hispanic culture or ethnicities or so on, or different lifestyle culture. I'm talking about culture, behaviors, language, attitudes, traditions that are also built around gender. As a woman being a woman, women coming together, that's a culture. Because of your trade, you're right. There's a certain culture among teachers. There's a certain culture among leaders when you get together and you have conversations and ways of doing and best practices. There's language for that. And so I want us to understand that when we're talking about diversity, even of culture, that's so much bigger than what we typically see. Okay. All right. So that's some history of historical context of DEIB here in America, but it doesn't stop there. Let's talk about DEIB in the Bible, giving a global, even deeper historical context to DEIB. For those of us who are people of faith, because I want you to understand, what Lead My Heart is all about. Okay? It's not just leading the heart, but allowing your heart to be led by God, by the Holy Spirit, so that we can make great decisions and be everything that God has called us to be. And so let's look at some, the biblical context here. Moses, even if you're not a person of faith or a Bible scholar, you have probably heard of Moses. You know the story, the true story of him leading the people out of Egypt into the promised land of Canaan. And he was a leader who had to utilize DEIB strategies to lead such a diverse group of people. Think about that, of all different characteristics and different tribes and all of that, from the Egypt into the promised land. And we know how difficult that was. But he strategized having different leaders, his brother Aaron, his sister Miriam. So you had diversity of leadership. You had diversity of skills and abilities to help him do that. And then also Joshua, his apprentice, who would be the one to actually lead the people into the promised land and conquer it. Then we have Esther. Many of you have heard about Queen Esther, the Jewish queen who was able to save her people from genocide, extermination, y'all, by using DEIB strategies. She wasn't afraid to have a diversity of counsel by listening to her uncle, okay, to being open to what the king had to say. She used her identity and her connection to her people as a way to be a voice for them. Then we have Nehemiah, okay, who was a prophet, a leader who was instrumental in rebuilding Jerusalem once people had returned from exile. So you have people returning to a place where already there had been community and ways of doing established, and they're coming back into that. So you have all of that while also, rebuilding and trying to bring people together. You don't think you had to use DEIB strategies to do that? By bringing on other leaders who knew the people, who could give him insight and, as I like to say, intel as to what the people needed, what mattered to them, so that he could better lead them. And then, of course, we have Jesus, the ultimate leader in Christianity, the greatest leader of all time, who used DEIB strategies in his leadership and teachings. And he was able to lead a diverse group of disciples. Oh gosh, I could go all in on that, but I won't. Who was able to lead kings and religious leaders and other politicians and the poor and the marginalized, to reach all of them. He do it. He taught it. He modeled it. He embraced it. He believed it, y'all. And that's how he was able to utilize DEIB in his ministry that made it so powerful. And I want to let you know that there wasn't a person, well, other than the ones who crucified him and put him on the cross, but it was all for a purpose. I was going to say there was some people he couldn't reach. There was no one he couldn't reach. There were some he couldn't. They didn't want to. They didn't want to be reached. They didn't want to be touched. But Jesus is for everybody. Jesus is for you. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your lifestyle, the things that you're doing, you have done. He is for you. And I want you to know that the heart of DEIB comes from the heart of God. It truly does. And Christ as his son, he embraced that. And he died for everyone, not just some, but for all. Okay, so who's a bigger champion? Who's a bigger champion for DEIB than the man and God who laid down his life, who gave his life? It wasn't taken, but who gave his life for everyone, even those who would not believe. Amen. All right, so what is God's heart for DEIB? You're talking about it? Tell me more. I'm so glad you asked. Let me tell you more about God's heart for DEIB. Okay, in Genesis 1:27 says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God created us in his image, whether male or female. Okay, and I know that as you're listening, you're like, why is she only saying male and female? Well, male and female, that's my language, but that does not impact how you identify yourself. Okay, and so I want to be clear in that. I can't tell you how to identify, but my language, right, and reading the Bible is male and female as we were created in God. The sex of male and female that we have. We're equal. We were created equal. Men are not better than women. Women are not better than men. But we're all created equally as the image of God. And what does that being made in the image of God mean? That we were made to function like God, to act like God. And that's what people need from us. That every interaction with us, they feel like, I'm interacting with God. This is the heart of God. Galatians 3:28 says, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Meaning there are no differences between your backgrounds, between, the person who has different religious beliefs, the one who is the slave or free, the one who is the leader or the follower, the one who's a male or female. We're all one in Christ, all giving something equally, all equally loved and considered. And James 2:9 says, but if you show partiality, biases, preferences, prejudices, okay, yeah, we're going to talk about that in this series. You are committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. Did you get that? But I want to be clear on what it's saying. It says that if you don't have it, we all have partialities. We all have, this is good. We all have biases and preferences and prejudices. We do. And so when people say, I want you to see my face when I say this, when people say, oh, get rid of your biases, get rid of that. That's, I don't like impossible talk. I don't like that. I don't like unrealistic talk. Let's be real. You're not going to get rid of them. We have them. We're human. Okay? As we're trying to grow and become more like God, right? Where we don't show, let's be clear. The Bible didn't say don't have them, because that would be like saying don't breathe. But James was very clear in saying, don't show them. Don't show them. Don't demonstrate them. Don't act on your biases and your prejudices in a way that hurts people, because that is sin. Y'all not ready. Y'all not ready. This is good stuff, y'all. I'm trying to tell you. Okay? We have them, but it's learning how to manage them. Not get rid of them, because we're not dealing with the impossible. But what we are talking about is, how do we not show them, especially as leaders? But the responsibility just isn't on leaders. It's on everyone. I'm going to get to that in a second too. Matthew 25:40 says, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So what is the heart of this statement? That as you make decisions about people and your employees and your leaders and your organizational members, are you treating the lower level employees, not the lowest, because they're not the lowest, just the low level, entry level, because it has their job has nothing to do with them as people. And we have to realize that. We don't do a good job with that a lot of the times. I hear a lot of derogatory language from leaders. Oh, they're useless. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. No, that is unacceptable language to talk about human beings who are working with you and for you for a purpose. And when I hear that, I will stop anyone and say that is not the heart of a leader to say such things about people, because their position Their worth is not measured in the title they have in an organization or what their duties are. We have to respect the dignity of every human being. Okay. And so the heart of this scripture is saying, will you treat the lower level employees as the CEO, as good as you treat the CEO, as great as you treat the executive leaders, as great as you treat the managers? Because a heart leader, who we are, we may not believe it all the way, but who we're becoming, at least, as heart leaders, that's what we desire. Yes, there's honor that goes with being a leader. Yes, there's greater responsibility that is deserving of honor and respect. But to think that you should be treated better than someone else simply because of your title, absolutely not. And a heart leader's heart desires for you to be treated as good as you are. It doesn't matter that you feel you do so much more. It doesn't matter that you feel you don't have the weight as everyone else. All equally important. Colossians 3:11 says, here, there is not Greek or Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, I don't know how to say this, Scythian, I don't know, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. Christ is represented in every single one of us. Every single one of us. And I love how it starts with saying here. In our community, in my organization, in my business, this is what we're doing. This is what we believe. This is how we're running things. This is how we're writing policies. Because here, Christ is all and in all. Christ is all and in all. That is what we believe as heart leaders, that Christ is all and in all. And even when you're having difficulties agreeing with people, seeing the best in people, that is what we have to come back to. That Christ is in all, that Christ is all and in all. Look for him in your team member. Look for Christ in your leader. Look for Christ in your constituents. Look for Christ in your stakeholders. And then 1 John chapter 4, 7-8 says, beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. Love is from God. Love doesn't come from your spouse. Love doesn't come from your children. Love doesn't come from that great job. Love doesn't come from that great concert you went to. Love comes from God and knows God. Love knows God. Y'all, don't miss that. So when you say you love someone, you're saying and confessing, you're coming in agreement that you know God. And how can you really know God if you don't know his word that can build you and encourage you and strengthen you to be the best leader that you can be? To be the leader that your team needs you to be, your staff needs you to be, your executive team needs you to be, your board needs you to be. It says anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. Amen. Amen. I be trying not to preach to y'all, but I'm just being me. Can I be me? Can I be me? Just be me. So what is the heart metaphor? Because I got to come with the heart stuff. I like that. The heart stuff. Not the heart stuff, but heart stuff is hard stuff sometimes, right? But here's a metaphor to help us understand DEIB in a better way. Diversity is like the different chambers of the heart. You have one heart, but each chamber has a different function, all working together to keep you alive, to help every other organ work well because it's pumping blood to that area of the body. Diversity is like that. Different characteristics, different qualities, different gifts and strengths coming together to help do something well. And we're going to talk more about what that is in a second. Equity. Equity is like the healthy flow of blood throughout the heart and throughout the body, ensuring that each part of the body receives the necessary nutrients and oxygen to function properly. If your liver doesn't get the necessary nutrients and oxygen to function properly, you're going to know it. If your eyes aren't getting the necessary nutrients and oxygen, if your feet aren't getting the necessary nutrients and oxygen to function properly, you're going to know it. That's what equity is like. What do people need to function properly? Inclusion. Inclusion is like the intricate network of vessels that connect the heart to the rest of the body. Inclusion is the vessel, ensuring that all parts of the body are connected and able to communicate with one another. Think about that. Even within the body that God meticulously created, there's effective communication between the heart and the brain, and the heart through the vessels and the rest of the body. There's effective communication there, which is the heart also of DEIB. And then we have belonging. Remember, I said earlier that no one can tell you if you belong. We can want you to know that. We can try to create ways of helping you realize that. But at the end of the day, only you can know whether you belong. I was in a group where someone was sharing that at their organization, one of their statements is, "You belong here." And I was like, that's great. But what if they don't? When do we have that conversation? I know y'all don't like this. I know this is controversial stuff. But it's like, you telling me I belong doesn't do anything for me if I don't feel it. Care where you put it. You can have the best murals. You can have the best. It could be in every book you write, every guide, every manual. Okay, but if I don't feel it, that's cute. It's just cute. So belonging is the heartbeat. It's the heartbeat. It's that constant rhythm that holds everything together. The feeling of being a part of something, y'all, having a sense of acceptance and community. That is what it's all about. Okay? And so my question is, do you have a heartbeat? Do you have a heartbeat where you are? Do a heartbeat chest. Just put your hand over your heart and just take a moment to meditate on that. For the places that God, where I am, and I want to say God called you. Yes. Hey, April. Yes. Or if God called you to it, that's right. Because we're getting to that in just a second. But where you are, whether where you're serving, where you're working, the business that you've invested time and money and stress and all this into, when you think about it, when you're there, when you're working in it, do you have a heartbeat? Do you belong? Or are you dying? Because let me tell you, people are dying every day in organizations where they don't belong. And the workplace is nowhere to die. You go there to live. You have one life. That's why I don't use the phrase work-life balance, because it insinuates that you have work and then you have life. No, you have one life. Personal, professional balance? Absolutely. Because both are my life. But I don't check into my business and check out of life. Or I don't check into life simply when I clock out of my business, which I never clock out. As an entrepreneur, you never clock out. But okay, but you see what I'm saying here? Do you have a heartbeat? Because the workplace is nowhere to die, y'all. So now let's get into what this is really all about with DEIB, and that is that every spiritual being requires two things. And the reason that you probably feel lifeless, dead, that you don't have a heartbeat for where you are is because of two things that you're lacking: purpose and partnership. You can go back to Genesis, it's there, okay, chapter 1, where you will see for yourself that God created us. And with that creation, he prescribed us purpose and partnership. Adam could not do it alone. He had an assignment. He had a purpose to tend and care the garden and all life, really, not just the garden. But God also prescribed to him a partner, a purposeful partner who could walk with him on that journey. Yes, it was his wife, but we can look at that outside of marriage and say that's the people that we are called, we hire. And so when you're hiring people, when you're interviewing people, purpose is a key thing. Is your calling? Do they know their calling? Do they feel called to the mission and vision that's established in this organization? For those of you who are executives in your organization, you have to understand that you have purpose there too. You have purpose, your divine purpose for what you were born to do. You have divine purpose for being a parent, for being a spouse, for the roles that God has brought into your life, right? You have different purposes. You feel a sense of calling for the work that you do. And then do you have key partnerships with whom you will accomplish it? And when you don't have those prescribed things taken care of, those needs being met, your pulse gets weaker and weaker. And this isn't the place. This isn't the thing. I don't belong here. And that's okay. That's good. That's not a sad thing. What you know and what you don't know is equally as important. I may not know where I belong, but knowing that I don't belong here is just as important, because it's still going to propel me and send me on a journey to get close to God, to get in his presence, to understand where is it that he has called me to be. They're equally important. Okay. So purpose says you belong here. Yeah. Your purpose, that tells you whether you belong. Okay. Does it always feel good? No, it doesn't. But when you have that confirmation of, I know I'm called to be here, my purpose says I belong here, it's the same mission, same vision that God has shown me, then whatever challenges I have, I can endure them because I know I belong here. Whatever hardships I have to overcome, I can't, because I know I belong here. But when you don't have that sense of purpose and belonging, every little thing is going to be an issue. Every little thing. And as executive leaders and people that you're bringing on to be on your team, if you have people like that every little thing is like they're 1 foot out the door, what do you think is going on? Right? They simply don't belong there, and that's okay. And that's okay. is not necessarily something that you can tell people, but what you can do is have really crucial conversations and helping people to identify their purpose and calling and whether or not where they are is a good fit for them. As a matter of fact, you should hire Dr. Wanita Mercer and Lead My Heart to come in as your executive coach that not only coaches executives, but also their executive teams to facilitate those crucial conversations. Plug there. All right. So when we're talking about, purpose and all of that, you have to understand that there are two approaches to DEIB, two that you're going to see most common in organizations. You have the purpose-centered approach, and then you have people-centered approach, okay? With purpose-centered approach, you're focusing on aligning your organization's DEIB efforts with its overall mission and vision, okay? Which is good stuff. It prioritizes your organization's identity and operations rather than treating it like it's a separate initiative. And so that's why earlier in this episode, I was like, initiatives, efforts, that's cute, that's great. But the goal is really for it to just be who you are and not just separate things that you do or separate events to say, hey, look at us, we're checking up DEIB. But the goal is for it to become a part of who you are. Then you have the people-centered approach where there really isn't a whole lot of focus on organization, but it's more like whatever the individual needs, their experiences and perspectives of people in an organization, that's going to be the priority to make sure that everything is inclusive and equitable. That's great too. We need that. But this is the thing, oftentimes it's one or the other. And so which approach do you take in DEIB? In your organization, whether you're an entrepreneur, an executive leader, what does that look like for you mostly? Do you typically lean to one side or the other? Is it more so purpose focused from the standpoint of the organization's purpose? Or is it more so people driven and centered? Okay, I want you to think about that for a second. What do you see happening in terms of what you naturally do, what you strategize to do? What does that look like? Okay, so now that you've kind of thought about that, this is what I want us to get to. Realizing it's not one or the other. It's both. Both have to be at the forefront. But how do we do that? Organizations are bodies. Yeah. Organizations are living and breathing. It's just not a building, but it's people who are gathered together around a purpose, a mission and vision for why that organization exists. Here at Lead My Heart, people who I am already speaking are going to come and join this company, this amazing company that God has established. We're going to be united around purpose. And that is to serve executive leaders and to support them in becoming everything that God has called them to be, leaders and their teams. Okay? That is the purpose. That is why we're coming together. That's the mission and vision. So everyone who comes to the table here at Lead My Heart has to have that same purpose too. And it sounds overly stated, like, of course, right? Yeah. But this is what happens when you see more people-centered DEIB versus purpose-centered DEIB in organizations. Unfortunately, when you see people-centered DEIB, what you see is trying to make everyone happy, and everyone first doesn't belong at the table. Okay. Yeah, I know that was kind of harsh, but that's the truth of the matter. Okay. Everybody doesn't belong at every table. It's purpose that unites you. And that's how we first foster unity in DEIB. When strategy meets empathy and these come together, it's because purpose, people's purpose and the organization's purpose align, y'all. Unity fosters DEIB. Unity does. And unity is possible when purpose is established. I see so many organizations running amok, trying to satisfy every difference, every, measure of diversity for people who have not yet been identified as having purpose and being aligned with the organization's mission and vision. Both have to be true at the same time. But you first have to establish purpose. And that's where unity comes in. And that also means that everyone and all, again, do not have a seat at every table. I don't. You don't. You don't belong at every table. But that's what the world wants you to think. And for people who don't have the mind of Christ and understanding purpose and the necessity of knowing your purpose and why you were created and what you're called to, that's hard for them to understand because they want to make it to where every person belongs at every table, and that's not the truth, y'all. And only those people whose purpose is in alignment with the purpose of the organization do you belong at this table. I was sharing with my mom the other day. She said, well, when I was talking some of these things out with her, she said, well, I want to belong at the table. I said, Mama, but you wanting to belong at the table and you actually belonging at the table are totally different. I said, you could be in the room. You could be observing the table, but only people who are called to leadership and called to support executive leaders belong at this table. And when I understand that great diversity of minds and skills and abilities is going to be established and beneficial to my company based on who belongs at the table, that's where the magic happens. But so many of us make or try to make everyone build a seat for us at the table when God is really trying to make an impression on your heart to go build your own table. Where people like you who may have not belonged at other tables or felt rejected from other tables, where they belong. And if you feel like you belong at every table, if you're spinning your wheels, forcing yourself to be at every table, you're going to miss the tables that God wants you to build for not only yourself, but for others like you as well. So diversity has to be utilized in a very meaningful way. And understanding that we are one body with many parts, one organization with many members, yes. But what is the purpose and mission? Who are you called to? Because who I'm called to is going to help me understand what type of diversity is needed, appreciated, beneficial to the people that we serve to be able to do it better. So for example, here at Lead My Heart, I want all kinds of diversity of people to come to my team. Why? Because I understand that only through different skills and abilities will I be able to serve executives better. And based on what my executives need and their teams, that's how I'm going to prioritize the type of diversity I prioritize in my organization. Why? Because it comes back to purpose. Purpose drives it. So here are 4 things that we have to understand that the organization being the body, just like in 1 Corinthians 12, chapter 12, verses 12 through 27, we're talking about here Paul saying, listen, you got to understand that as the church, we are one body. We are Christ's body. And so I want us to be able to see the parallel between the church as Christ's body, all of us with different skills and abilities, all of us being able to do different things, how we come together, being the arms, legs, feet, heart, eyes, mouth, all of that, the head, the brain of the church. But you have to see your organization as the same way. You're one body, and your organization needs legs. Your organization needs hands. Your organization needs a brain and eyes and a mouth and a nose, and for people to have all these different skills and abilities to be able to work and really create a body. You see organizations with so much brain they can't see because they have no eyes. Or they have so many eyes that all they can do is sit because they don't have any legs. They don't have people who to go out and reach and talk to the community and connect with the community. Or they have no hands. Right? Like, you need all of it. You need all of it. Okay. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 12 through 27, we learn 4 things. Number 1, every member of the organization is necessary and important. But what unites us is the purpose of being the church. It's the purpose of being all things to all people. But I, as Wanita, I can't be all things to all people by myself. But it's through purposeful partnerships and coming together with other diverse people that I, as lead my heart, can better be all things to executives. Not all people, because I'm called to executives. That's purpose. Empower. Every member has special gifts and talents that are beneficial to the organization. Those spiritual gifts, those abilities, those God-given abilities that you're not just supposed to use at church. No, are you kidding? How wasted. You're supposed to use that in your business. Use it in the work that you do. But we're all empowered. Every member is also called. Every member has a responsibility to embrace and exercise their purpose. DEIB is a two-way street. It is not just on the leaders to push and prioritize DEIB, but it's on the followers too. Every member of the organization has that responsibility. How we think, how we look at each other, how we love each other. But we also have to realize who we are. By realizing that someone else is a leg, I have to realize I'm a brain. And I can't try to be a leg. I have to embrace myself and love myself as a brain. And then walk in that, exercise that. But then also connect it. Every member has a responsibility to work well with others. Every member. Why? Because we're all connected. What if the liver decided, I don't want to be connected to this body no more? What if the heart decided, I'm good. Y'all go ahead and do what y'all need to do. But I'm bowing out. I'm gonna have to sit this one out. What? What do you mean? We're all connected. And if the liver backs out, guess what? Then that's gonna pull on the kidneys. That's gonna pull on the heart. That's gonna pull on everything else. What do you mean you're sitting out? What do you mean you don't have to work well with others? What do you mean you don't have to be connected? It's everyone's responsibility. Everyone, every member is important, empowered, called, and connected. And we got to act that way. So the heart of DEIB. We're getting to the end, y'all. Thanks for hanging in there with me. But the heart of DEIB, again, the heart is an acronym that stands for our habits, our experiences, our affections, our responsibilities and roles, and our traumas and terrors. Why? Because that's who people are. That's the heart of every spiritual being. That's what we're made of. And to lead people, To lead spiritual beings is to lead that. I would love to come in and act like my expectations are the primary thing without having to account for anyone's experiences, their affections, their responsibilities, their traumas and terrors, their habits, any of that. Let me just tell you what I want and you do it. But that's not leadership. We have to see each other. And this is how we see each other, by understanding that every person, every spiritual being is a heart. So the heart of DEIB looks like this. It has certain habits: to listen actively, to self-reflect, okay, on our prejudices, our biases, how we treat people, what we believe, what our perceptions are. We have the habit of empathizing with other people. Gosh, for a minute, let me just put myself in their shoes. Let me imagine what it must be like to be them. Let me observe their work for a day. Let me follow them for a day so I can empathize, not sympathize. Not just saying, oh, that's must be hard, but really saying, let me understand why it's hard. Inclusivity. Hey, what do you think? I want to know your perspective. What do you think we should know about that we're missing? Asking those questions. Action. Not just talking about it, but being about it, acting on it. Leadership is in action. DEIB is in action. And there's too much talking going on without real change. And it's also continuous learning. Those are the habits of DEIB. The experiences are personal and professional growth. You can't start to look at people for their whole self and not grow. You can't start seeking understanding of people's cultures and experiences and the historical context of how this came about and not grow. Collaboration and teamwork, a sense of purpose. That's the experience. Did you know who you are? Not just the sense of purpose within the organization, but really understanding who you are. That's been one of the greatest experiences for me as an entrepreneur and starting Lead My Heart, is God showing me who I am. And then innovation and creativity. These are, I'm telling you, you can't be a champion for DEIB and not become a more innovative and creative person with how you facilitate equity and belonging, right? Or inclusion. What are the affections of DEIB? Compassionate. Yep. We got to be compassionate. That sense of belonging, that self-efficacy, knowing that you can do it. You can be an agent of change. You do have the capacity to do whatever it is that you feel you need to do. But also empowerment, knowing that you have the skills, you have the knowledge and abilities to push change. Human dignity. Oh gosh, yes, y'all. Heart leaders. We see and respect the dignity of every human being. And that's through love and respect. What are some of the responsibilities or roles of DEIB? Who has that? Both leaders and followers. It's not just on the leaders, but it's on every member of the organization. Every person has an active role in creating these inclusive spaces and advocating for others, fostering a DEIB culture. But what are we afraid of? What is some of the difficulties and challenges and hardships and just traumas that we've experienced through DEIB? Oh gosh, is the resistance and backlash. How dare you say what you need, right? How dare you speak up for other people? How dare you say that this is inequitable, right? The failure Maybe that what you're trying to do fail, like you're afraid of that you're not going to come through, that you're not going to show up for people in the way you need to. That's okay. Is not I'm not saying the fear is okay, but what I'm saying is the reason why you fear failing people and not showing up okay is a good thing. Right? We shouldn't be so complacent about how we're not showing up for people. The fear of being, gosh, overwhelmed by all of this stuff, right? Overwhelmed by everything that it takes, or overwhelmed by what you don't know. Feeling afraid of being tokenized. Hey, Juanita, tell us about, what Black people want. Been there, done that. Like, what should we do for your people? What, really? Or when I'm over in China and all of a sudden I represent every Black person in America, or every Black person on the planet, because they've had so few encounters with a Black person. And I'm having to tell them, hey, I would love for you to think that every Black person in the world is like me, but honey, honey, they're not. Okay? No. But really, it's true. It's true. And when you're one of few that look like you, or have experiences like you, or backgrounds like you, in an organization or a room or a place, you can quickly feel tokenized as being the representative. And it's like, I'm sorry, but no, everyone's not as fabulous. No, everyone's not as forward thinking. Okay, I'm being humorous, but it's true. It's kind of true though. But we're all fabulous in our own way. Everyone's just not fabulous in my way, right? Or your way, for that matter. We fear being misunderstood or even retaliation. Okay, and so those are valid fears. They're valid traumas that people have experienced in dealing or pioneering or championing DEIB, and so we just have to be aware of that. If people aren't gung ho about doing something, it's because you probably don't know what's happened. You probably don't know that they've already faced and dealt with retaliation or resistance or backlash from what they've done before trying to push change. So let's be mindful of that. So what's your DEIB trauma or terror? And we ain't necessarily that I'm asking you to put in the comment section, but I do want you to think about, like, what are the things that you're afraid of, or what are the things that you've experienced that just kind of have you hesitant to push DEIB in your organization in the way that you know that you should? Okay. Now, you know that here at Lead My Heart, we're big about three things when it comes to our executive leaders. We help support our leaders in discipline. Developing those personal disciplines is going to help you advance towards your goals and achieve everything that God has called you to. We also deal with development, leadership development, skill development, okay, whatever it is that you feel that you're lacking in, to again help you advance towards your goals and be everything that God has called you to be. But then the third thing is discipleship. We encourage you and help give you strategies on how to be a more effective disciple through your leadership, through your modeling and examples that you present to people in the workplace, in your organizations, and in your business. And so that's why we're talking about DEIB and the Great Commission. Okay, go ye therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things. That's what we have to do. And so how does DEIB play a role in that? Well, number one, it helps us to reach diverse groups. And by reaching diverse groups, by understanding their needs, like, we'll be able to communicate the gospel to them in a way that's meaningful and relevant to them, based on their traditions, what's important to them. Number two, it helps us to build a diverse community. by realizing that there's beauty in diversity, of us coming together and having different perspectives and backgrounds to be able to reach a community better with effective evangelism and discipleship. Third, it helps us to pursue equity and justice. By working towards justice and equity for all people, which aligns with the message of gospel of the teachings of Christ. That was his message. The kingdom of God is here, it's upon us, but the kingdom of God is for everyone. And when he meant all, he meant all. He didn't qualify it like I did, right? For his purpose, he meant everyone who chooses to believe. And number 4, to model diversity and inclusivity. And by modeling diversity and inclusivity in your leadership, and how you communicate with people, how you interact with people in your own life and at work, in your business and in community, we break down barriers, y'all, and we create spaces, environments, atmospheres where people feel safe and accepted. Can I be honest with you and share a hard truth? Your organization, my business, okay? I'm putting myself out there, will not necessarily be a safe place for everybody. I will do my best, and because of our call and purpose, we have to realize that's always right. That's why growing a business, having a new business, having a new organization will never get stale, because your place is not necessarily going to be the best fit or the safest place or the most acceptable place for them to grow and develop. It's a hard truth, but we have to be okay with that. Okay. But our prayer is that everyone gets connected and find a place where they feel, oh Lord, they feel Christ in everyone. They feel as something that they have a place of belonging. That is my prayer. And so that's something that I have to come to realize, that even through my best efforts, that's still going to be the case. And that's okay. Now, it does prompt self-reflection to see if there are ways I can serve people better in my capacity or within my scope. But if I can't, then we have to be okay with that too. So y'all, that's it. That's it for today's episode. I pray that you were blessed by this. Comment and share, y'all. Comment, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for your questions, your input, sharing. April said, we walk around trying to sit at someone else's table when we have a whole toolkit with dust on it in a garage. Yes, we do. Go build that table. And I just want to give a shout out to April Williams, who is the founder and CEO of Journey to Live, who's joining, us on the live stream today. And she's doing great things. She has built a table for mental health as a mental health coach, and doing amazing things and providing amazing services for people to have a safe place to come and talk about their mental health journey, and having the support and a purposeful partner to walk with them in that growth and development. So thank you for joining today, April. And y'all definitely check out Journey to Live. So again, comment, share, let me know your thoughts on this. Join me tomorrow, okay, at the same time. I don't know why that 2 is in the middle of like that. I'll see stuff like that. I'm just like, why does that look like that? I don't know. But join me tomorrow for episode 2, where we're talking about my 7 pillars of diversity. Okay. 7 pillars of diversity, 7 measures, whatever you want to call them, of diversity. Y'all, it's not just race. It's not just intellect, but there's so many other ways that we can like pioneer and champion diversity without just looking at those two things. Or, sexual orientation is another one we quickly go to, but there's so much more to it. So join me tomorrow as I talk about those 7 pillars of diversity and give you a model for managing our biases, prejudices, and preferences so that we don't what? Show partiality. We have them, but just so we don't show them. All right. Okay. So I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. And then also just want to let you know that the second edition of my debut book, The Man You Need to Marry, is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Y'all, this book is a blend, not just of single women. It's funny to me because I wrote the book, of course, tailored to single women, but I've been getting more feedback from married women saying what a blessing has been to them. Y'all, order this book. It's only $8.99 on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Check it out. It is a devotional that is going to walk you through 7 encounters with Christ that women had. In that encounter with covenant love, they were healed. They were forgiven. They were truly seen. They were honored. They were supported. They were led. So what does this book have to do with leadership? Everything, because we women need to be careful and intentional about dating and partnering with men who can lead us and love us as Christ loves the church. And this book teaches you how to do that. Okay. So also, if you want to learn more about me, my company, and let's hook up to talk about how I can serve you and your organization through executive coaching and executive team coaching, or even come to do motivational speaking. I'm all for it. Let's go. So go to my website at Lead My Heart to learn more and to also fill out the booking form. Okay. And y'all, you know what I'm going to say. Go live and lead with purpose, but also in everything you do and with everything you have, love God and love people. Goodbye, y'all.